Welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast with Kyle and Dan. We're super excited. We're super excited that you're back with us on another episode. And if this is your first time, the goal of this podcast is to help you create ecosystems and environments where people thrive. Look, today's conversation, we're going to really be unpacking leadership. Dan and I were having amazing conversation before we hit the record button on a lot of the work, a lot of the developmental and inner work that we're doing as leaders, a lot of the realizations that we've had recently and over the last year and a half that is helping us show up better, and not just in the work that we're doing, but also at home. So this episode is going to help you become the leader that people actually want to follow. Dan, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good, Kyle. I this makes me think of on TikTok, right? There are these videos about millennial managers, right? And the piece about millennial managers they always hinge on is that they're super self-aware. Their ability to look at urgency and not react at urgency sets them apart, and their love and empathy and grace for the people that they work with is what sets them apart. Like, they always come on and they're like, hey, just one more minute, I'm finishing something. And they're like, oh, I know you told me about, so and so. Like, I hope you're taking some time for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, doing these things, but they're not performative.
Yeah.
And it makes me think a little bit of this conversation, because there has to be evolution in leadership, right? Especially AI fits into this too, right? Of like things can't be performative, they have to be human. And also they can't be AI, they've got to be human.
Yeah.
And if you, in a world where everyone thinks their job is at risk for AI, I have this belief that in certain sectors, just like how small business has really clawed its way back recently, because people want one-on-one attention, they want special curated experiences. I think the same way, especially in our work and in leadership work, people are craving to be seen and to be heard from the people at the top who are making the decisions.
No, I agree. And for those people at the top that are making decisions, it's important that we do the work first, right? As I was mentioning to you a little bit earlier, I'm currently reading this book called Men's Work by Connor Beaton. Phenomenal work. And it talks a lot about the shadow work that we need to really be able to do, and how a lot of these shadows are meant to suppress and hide the various desires or the wants or the potential that we often have. And it's up to us in this journey of personal development, personal and professional development, to recognize that personal development isn't always about developing your skills so that you could produce outcome. And that's what, to be frank with you, Dan, that's what I always thought it was for. I always thought that you read books so that you can understand to be, smarter, so that you can make more money. You go to these conferences so that you can network, and then ultimately you can make more money. You do these things so that you could really be able to advance your wealth, rather than, like you mentioned earlier, that inner wealth. And there was a statement in chapter 1 that I love, just about personal development isn't always about becoming, it's about unbecoming as well. And things that you have to unpack, things that you have to reveal, people that you potentially have to reconcile with, so that you could really be able to identify and integrate these new traits in who you are, so that you can impact and affect other people around you. And I think as a leader listening, empathetic leadership is very, very important. When we think about emotional quotient scores and EQ work, especially today, when you look at some of the top leaders, Fortune 500 companies that are really trailblazers, they're attributing their success to their self-awareness. And if we can't be self-aware on who we are and understand truly who we are, what we want, our desires, and be willing to listen and open our ears to what other people want and need and how their voices are seen, heard, and valued, then it's going to be challenging for us to lead people in a way that they want to be led. And that's something that I'm working on. Um, for our listeners, I recognize for years, I only wanted to become the best based upon measurable standard. And I
Mhm.
recognize that you achieve a lot. You publish books and you get great jobs and you make, money and you travel to various places and you get these great opportunities. But the truth is you can only sustain those things if you've done the work prior to be able
Mhm.
to be the person that can sustain those things. I think it's easy becoming successful, but I would redefine success now as your ability to sustain and maintain that success, that impact for a long period of time. Like, it's not saying it's easy. It's not as challenging for many elite players to make it to the NBA.
Mhm.
But the true mark of true success and greatness is like a LeBron James, like a
Mm.
Kobe Bryant.
Exactly what I was gonna say.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mhm.
That is that
Mhm.
sustainability. Like, you've been great. Like, you're in your 40s still maintaining the same stats is insane. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, like coaches like UConn's girls coach, like Gino, like
Yeah.
you've maintained this level of excellence for so long. And I think it can't happen unless you evolve personally.
Yeah, you you talked a little bit earlier about, unbecoming. I think it was
Yeah.
becoming and unbecoming, and I started thinking about being,
Mm,
right? And I think that ties into that sustainable piece, and that's so if that is not a testament to the wavelength that we are on, I was literally thinking to myself, LeBron is the perfect example. Whether you like him or not,
mhm,
that guy has been in the league for so long. You rarely hear anything about his personal life.
mhm.
Both of his kids are thriving, and he has sustained this level of success for so long, right? And I tend to think about being, right? It's kind of funny when I was coming up through my career, I wanted to be an athletic director. And there's everything going on from all different areas as an athletic director, especially Division One, which is what I wanted to be. And it was always, what can I do? How can I keep doing something to be successful, to get
Mm,
noticed, to move to the next job, to be an athletic director? Then it was being a vice president or vice chancellor of advancement. And now it's being a president, right, of a college or an
yeah.
institution at some point. And I think to myself, my who was my girlfriend then, but now my wife, she always said, you need to be more present. Like,
Mm,
you're always thinking so far ahead, so down the road. You're not uh you're not sitting in your success. You're not reveling in your success. You're not
yeah.
feeling it and celebrating yourself. Now, is that because of how I felt growing up and what I felt like I needed to achieve? Probably goes back to that.
Yeah.
And she would always say that to me. Now we've kind of flip-flopped a little bit. But I think about, even in my last role, I went in and I was like, it's going to be a better schedule. I'm making less money, right?
Yeah.
Because I said to myself, it wasn't about the money, it was about the opportunity.
Yeah.
But then I ended up working 10 times harder than I did when I was making more money, but in lesser opportunities elsewhere. And I wasn't being, right? I
Mm.
wasn't in it. I wasn't being present. And in this next phase of my professional career, I am so present. Like, I think that it is very possible, and we talk about this all the time,
Yeah.
to look at the future and say, what do we want to accomplish in 30, 60, 90 days? What do we really want to accomplish in the next year? But I think that if you have a good team and a good business partner, good people you work with, you can say, okay, what are we accomplishing right now?
Mm.
because you can't look at 30, 60, 90, 1 year, 6 months, 1 year down the road without understanding where you are right now and being present to that. Because if you're not putting all of your energy to what is directly in front of you, you can't get to those next phases 90, 6 months, a year down the road in that being. And I'm going to say this quote. This is what I'm working on for keynotes in the future, right? Because I'm trying to figure out, trying to get on your level, Kyle. I'm trying to figure out my keynote. And I've really been focusing on this creativity, this proactivity, like no processes equal reactivity. But I think I really found it. And I think the thing is, the root of reactivity is loneliness.
Hmm.
Because if you are lonely, you're not working with others. And if you're not working with others and collaborating with others, you're lacking creativity and proactivity because it's just you. And when it's just you, the only way to get ahead is to be reactive, to make those quick decisions, to put out fires and to go ahead because there's no one else helping you. And I I want you to think about that because I know you're going to have something to say
Yeah.
about that because we, especially in the book, right, that you were just talking about, right? We know that there is a male loneliness epidemic.
Hmm.
And I think that, like we've talked about in our careers and in our life, when you're reactive, you're not present,
Yeah.
right? When you're proactive, you can kind of see what's coming, you can prepare, you can work with others, work with your team. So that way it's not just on you. And I find that really interesting when I think about that because I think about leaders, right? I think about leaders who are reactive, who make these rash decisions. And you think, who are they talking to about this? Who are they uh, testing this idea with?
Yeah.
And then, like in some cases for myself too, for experiences that I've had, you see that they haven't talked to anyone.
I think that there's a lot of people that aren't talking to people, and it's interesting because I think in my experiences, um, I'm working on a new keynote um, around the theme turning your potential into power.
Mm,
And the big idea, which is very controversial, that I want to potentially communicate at the beginning of the keynote is that one of the biggest, I believe, lies that my parents told me growing up that I wish would have been different
mhm,
is telling me that I'm not enough.
mm,
And for
mm,
years as a kid, growing up two-parent household, very different than the typical like black kid
mhm,
story. My parents put me on a pedestal where I felt like I could do anything
mm,
and that I could become anything. And there was always something that my father would say. He would say, "You can do anything that you want to do, what as long as you put your mind to it." I
mhm,
feel like that was like the typical old school affirmation.
mm,
And I started to really believe it. And what happens though is that sometimes you can become so engrossed in your affirmation that um, you begin to weaponize your skills and gifts. And you
mm,
believe that you're voided of consequence. You believe that, well, as long as I make money, it doesn't really matter who I hurt on the process. As long
mm,
as I accomplish these things and create jobs, it doesn't matter about the hearts that were broken.
mm,
Um, so I think I love what you mentioned earlier, and I'm going to go back so that we can continue to move forward in the conversation. You mentioned that being, and I really like just want to I want people to just pause for a second and write that word being down and circle it, highlight it. If you're typing it, put bold around it, underline it, whatever you need to do. Because I think for me, yes, it's important to celebrate where you are right now.
mhm,
And I think for me, in my journey, I'm often asking myself, well, Kyle, who do you have to become in order for you to achieve that next level of success? And why I mentioned back earlier why I feel like when people tell us we're enough, I feel like it's not true is because we are enough if we want to stay exactly where we are.
Mhm,
But in order for us to be able to achieve the life that we want to achieve, in order for us to really operate in that potential that sometimes we have suppressed, in order for us to get back to those kid-like imagination or dreams, it
mhm,
requires it requires a deep stripping and shedding and a season of becoming so that you can actually get to the next level. And I think that's one thing that you've helped me a lot with becoming the leader that can actually build this infrastructure and this company to its heights where we're really creating jobs for people around the world. And that would not have happened in regards to creativity, in regards to execution, in regards to sustained excellence over the programs that we have and the things that we're doing without me committing to becoming the best that I can be, me being held accountable for from someone else, and then me understanding and having vision and clarity on where we're going. And I think a lot of leaders
mhm,
lack real clarity and vision of where they're going because of that loneliness that you talked about earlier.
mhm,
I also believe a lot of leaders lack the ability to truly receive help and be
mhm,
held accountable to a higher standard. And I believe those two things alone never allow us to achieve true innovation or achieve sustained success over a period of time. And for me, just again, making this, it's like a me versus me in this season.
mhm,
I recognize in order for me to increase, it requires me to simplify and reveal things that are stopping me or have hindered me from really being able to accelerate. So I think before we can really accelerate in our lives and in our
mhm,
businesses and our organizations and in our leadership, we have to evaluate. So that's the thing that I want people to write down. In order for you to accelerate, you have to evaluate. Like, what am I doing that is hindering my ability to be able to be impactful? What am I doing that is not contributing to the success of this team? Who do I need to become? What do I need to learn? Who do I need to partner with in order for me to be able to move forward? Like, what things do I need to deal with? I think that there's a lot of things that conversations that we need to have, targets that we need to hit, a lot of things that we just allow to sit dormant, like dormant in our
mhm,
lives, and on our schedules that we're not executing on. Like, what things do I need to take care of? Who do I need to become in this being season so that I
mhm,
can build? Like, before you build, you have to be.
mhm. You you said something in there that I was kind of thinking about. You are enough, right? And that's one of those things. And I think there's two sides to it, right? Like I
Yeah.
think you shared the side of you are enough and talked about kind of like use the word weaponizing,
Yeah.
right? I think there's also the side of you are enough that aids what you're talking about in the growth, right? Because I think there's a lot of people that don't think they're enough to move forward. They don't think they've gotten there yet where they have the confidence to move forward. And I think there's this piece of it where you are enough where you are to say, I want to do more, I can achieve more,
Mm,
right? So like it's not that you are enough, like you're just like you're good where you are, right? But it's kind of like a little bit of that push to say, like, you are enough in terms of you can move forward, right? You you know enough, you are enough, you are strong enough, you're smart enough, you're kind enough, you are empathetic enough that you can move into this next stage of whatever that looks like for you. And you mentioned something else, and I'm trying to remember the exact word because I was thinking of you are enough, and then I was thinking about the leadership side too, right? Where we talked about kind of these different pieces, and I think about the leaders that are the most reactive, the leaders that people usually have trouble with are usually the leaders that feel the most inadequate. They're the leaders that don't feel like they are enough. They don't feel like they've done enough, or they're smart enough, or they're qualified to lead. So they have to do it in a different way. They have to assert their power to outwardly show that they are the leader, because they need that, right? Because they feel like an imposter.
Can I ask you, like, where do you think that comes from? Like,
I truthfully, I think we can both relate to this as being former student athletes, right?
yeah,
Former Division I college athletes. We were challenged a lot,
yeah,
right? Life circumstances, training, competitions, feeling like we were not enough. But we were challenged. We were challenged by coaches, teammates, competitors. And when you are challenged, you grow. And I think a lot of these leaders who feel inadequate or feel like imposters, they have not been challenged in their career. They have not been challenged to grow, to think, to build the kind of, we talk about sometimes the it in the ego. They
mm,
haven't been challenged enough to grow those to a point where they can say, the external, the people around me, I appreciate what they have to say, but I don't need their validation. I
mm,
think that they need all of that. And I think that is where it comes from, because they haven't been challenged enough to grow, to create their own ideals and the strength of those ideals and values that lead them
yeah.
versus external factors that are leading them. Does that make sense?
No, it definitely makes sense, and I believe that vulnerability is your superpower in leadership.
Mhm.
And I believe that early in my leadership journey, I wore a lot of masks and I showed up exactly how I felt like people wanted me to show up. And I became someone that was focused on being liked and
Mhm.
respected. And I never wanted to muddy the waters, and I never wanted to create conflict, and I never wanted to have people disagree with me. I would fold, so that I could believe that I was doing what's best for the team, or the organization, or really people's aspirations, so that I can continue to have this perspective that I am cooperative with people. And I asked that question because for me in my leadership now, it's taken a lot of different elements and traits to push back. It's taken a lot of work to be the leader that, yeah, is vulnerable, but recognizes like, nah, like this is what we're doing. This is what I want. It's taken a lot of work. And I would be interested in learning from other leaders, or even just listening to people, or people commenting in, that are listening to the podcast. Like,
Mhm.
what have you had to do in your journey to really just, lack of a better terms, like not really care about this idea of validation or people
Mhm.
accepting you, like you just leading in a way that is kind of, not really considerate of other people, and finding that line between consideration and empathy, but we're still going to do it in this way.
Yeah, I like that. I Yeah, I mean, we talk about empathy a lot, right? And again, I think it's not just our generation, but I think that's one of the things that our generation does really best, or does best, and we want to bring that in, because I always think the reason I want to be a leader, and the reason I've continued to try to find indirect and direct ways to be a leader, is because I want to give others what I felt like I was not given,
Mm,
whether it was in high school from a coach, whether it was from a former boss, from a former colleague, whatever it was. It's always, I always think to myself, I don't want other people to feel the same way that I felt
mm.
in those situations.
I'm interested in tapping in with people, right? I think I want to hear what it's like for you, listeners, in your leadership journey. Like, what is a trait? What is an attribute? What is a characteristic that you feel like has helped you accelerate your leadership? Or even on the other end, what is a trait? What is an attribute? What is a character trait, um, that has suppressed your ability to lead in the way that you desire to lead? For me, I've recognized I have to be more vulnerable. I have to be honest. I have to show who I truly am and be unapologetic in that person so that I can be able to leverage and really connect so that we could be able to drive our success or whatever it is forward. But for you, I'd like to know. I'd like to really know, because in order for you to become the leader that people follow, you have to become a better person. You have to become a better human being. You have to become more honest. You have to become more empathetic. You have to become more integral. You have to become, in order for you to have the ability to do more so that you could be able to have the people that follow you. It's another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. We're so excited that we were able to be vulnerable, that we were able to switch it up with you all today. But we'd like to hear from you. Comment below, respond below, review below on how would you define leadership and what does it take for you to be a better leader? One of the questions that we always ask is, what type of culture are you spreading? The energy you bring is the culture you create. Make yours worth catching. We'll see you.